Me. So hello everybody. And let me try to set my stuff up. Remind me, where did we stop last time? What did we do? Somebody. Silence is golden. Do I have a microphone? Mikk, kas mind on kuulda?
Ja, sind on kuulda.
Nii, mis me tegime eelmine kord? Kus me lõpetasime?
Mingi veepäppi tegid.
Mingit veepäppi tegid. Nii, ma näen, et siin on meil Homework 04 Battleship, mis räägib meil andmebaasist. I think we stopped somewhere Razor pages. We did this one, domain del, and then I think we also scaffolded the things, the pages themselves. So let me open up the demo and see where we are.
Robert ütleb, et Kruudi juurde jäime.
Just, ma mõtlengi, et we did the pages. So, all right. So I'm recording, everything is fine, voice is there. So let's start. So last time we were here. So let's run it and see what we got. Should be the CRUD pages. Hopefully, error running. What the hell? Rebuild solution. I have .NET 6 also already installed the preview version, so I might get conflicts here somewhere. Hopefully not. What? What is this? Okay, now it started. So we did this. So we have our persons, courses, course declarations. Login failed. Why? Has somebody taken over my database again? Let's see. I should be able to log in without the VPN, I think, hopefully. I should have access rights directly. Oh, where's the database here? Okay. Let's move it to the... let's do this. And I need to migrate. So I need to update the database. Should work. Okay. Now I have my database. You at home probably need to, not probably, but you need to use a VPN connection to get access to the database server. I can access directly. My IP is in the load list, so I don't need to rise up the VPN when I'm at home. So this was our CRUD, and we modified the layout page to actually put those links here. So we can try that everything works as it's supposed to work. So let's try to enter the data here and see what are the problems. Okay, courses, C#, course declaration, person Andres. All right, this is already seems to be wrong. There might be several addresses. I don't know who is who. Course, maybe course name is maybe okay. I'm not a student here. So let's, okay, final grade has to be there. But it was -1. Okay. Then we have the homeworks. So it's the homework 01 in the C#, yes. And then we have the grades. Grade value, maybe I can get the 3 somehow. Homework 1. Okay, here we need to do something a little bit more advanced and actually to show either more info, that it is a combination of a course name and a homework name, or even better, it should actually first select the course, and then only then when I have chosen the course, it will show me the homeworks that there are. And the course declaration ID is totally probably bad here. It should only allow me to, but when I choose the course, then it should filter out and show me the course declarations that belong to that course, not all the course declarations. But at least in theory, yep, I can insert correct data in the database in that sense that the database is okay. So the database seems to be okay, but the UI is definitely not something that is really useful. Not useful, but it's useful, but it's usable, let's say. Should be much, much better. And for that, we need to actually work with our pages and fix everything here and actually understand what is going on. So the first question also for the next semester is, do you actually know what the hell is a Bootstrap? Can't see anybody. So how's your Bootstrap knowledge? In your HTML course, did you touch Bootstrap, which is probably the most common thing Robert, I think we walked through it last semester or last year. Did I touch the Bootstrap last lecture? Oh, okay. Okay. You weren't allowed to use third-party frameworks in the HTML course, so you had to do everything manually. Okay. So yeah, we did touch it the last time a little bit. Yes. So the main concept once again is that Bootstrap is just a bunch of CSS, makes stuff nice, makes it look a little bit better than the standard stuff. And the main you really have to get used to it. Get bootstrap.com. The main thing is we are on the Bootstrap 4.6. So the main thing we have to, yep, I think also we had it for 4 minutes. So the main thing, there are many like things here, but the biggest thing here is the grid. So this is the main focus point, what is going on here. And it starts with this div class row. So everything is divided into the rows. And one row, so this is one row. One row is divided into 12 equal widths of, I don't know, smaller containers. So those are called columns. So it's basically a table-like structure. So we have one row, and inside the rows, we will have next divs or whatever elements with some kind of call specification. And this call specification points out, so all those, it has those size specifications, so small, large, etc. So all those take account how much screen state there is. And by combining those in different ways, we can achieve those this fluent resizing. So depending how much space there is, we can hide some columns, we can make columns wider, narrower, we can swap them or move them underneath each other. So all kinds of those tricks. But basis of everything here is this div class row and then columns inside the row. So if we look at any of the created forms or whatever the pages are done here, so let's take what person's first one. So it starts from here, from the index. So index is a classical table. So here we don't have any kind of columns and rows because index is a data table, and the data table is still recommended to do as a table. So there is like no point of drawing out tables as divs and stuff like that. So this is still a table, but it has nice styling properties. Most common one is probably here is a table striped. So this will make every other line a different color. So black and white or darker and white background. So it's easier to see what the data is. Plus we have this table head. This makes this column here or this row here. Plus adds those lines here. So it's easy to see where the header is. And then we have the actual data. But otherwise it's a table as normal HTML tables go. So if I run it again, now I should have this striped layout. So initially it doesn't do anything. Okay, it already have a gray background now, but if I add a new row, so now this row is white. Guess what is Jüri Mari. Let's add a mic also. So it makes this kind of like nice striped table. But if we look into the other forms, so let's take the crate is the next one. So now this one is using the recommended or the like classical Bootstrap row and column system. So we have here this div class row. So it's in one row. Then we have this column MD4. And then inside the MD4, we have our form. And this consists of form groups. So that's the next kind of divider here. So we can see if we create new. So let's go and inspect it. What is what? I know. Where is it? That one. So we can see here we have one row. So this row takes the full width of the screen minus the spacing on the edges. And then the form itself sits in one column. So there's only one column here. So only one kind of like the cell. And the width is col medium 4. So when we start to squeeze it, so we can see what happens with this medium 4. So when the screen is medium or bigger, then it is this width of 4. So divided into the 4. So basically there can fit like 3 or 2 additional columns here. But when we squeeze it below the medium screen size, so now it's some kind of something like small. So we can see where it switches. Where is this? So it's at 768 pixels is the breakpoint. Then it isn't anymore medium 4. Now it's just a column. So it doesn't have any size limit. And then it is just one wider full width thingy. So when we play with it here a little bit, we can add another one here. So let's add here some kind of dummy content. So we can do something like let's say background warning maybe. And let's put at least one empty space here. So let's see what it looks like now and what will happen. So now I got this column here with this warning background. And if I make it wider, so now it's bigger than or medium or bigger screen. And now those columns are side by side. And if I squeeze it, then they jump beneath each other. So we play around. If you want to do like any decent design, then we play around with those columns. And on what screen size, what shall they do? How much space should they take? We can, for example, let's try, can we do something like this? So it's on the medium, it's 4. Let's say col. Let's make it SM, since virtually the width is 12. So I can try something like this. That when the screen is smaller, then let's use half of the width for both columns. Yep. Now they are half, so this is now small. And when it goes into the bigger, then it jumps back to the 1/3 and 1/3. And finally, when it's extra small, it still goes into the one column layout. Everything is swept. So this makes this kind of like responsive layout. And probably Bootstrap is kind of like the most used classical responsive web design framework there is. So we will use it in this course, and we will use it on the next course quite a lot. There are some others also, so this is not the only one. There are frameworks that make the web look like Android application, quite popular one. And there are some more, let's say, more complex frameworks. Tailwind, for example, which is used a lot in the professional projects. But Tailwind is kind of starts from the really, really low level, and you have to like configure it a lot manually first before you get any kind of decent result out of it. But then it's really, really good. But such kind of like quick and fast websites are done a lot with the Bootstrap. So it's used quite a lot. Probably as lot as a WordPress is used. So there's plenty of those around. So probably more than a half of websites in the world are based on the Bootstrap. I think at least there is a lot. So and ASP.NET has it built in, so it's quite of like easy thing to use and easy to understand what is going on here. So the grid system is the main focus what we have. So or the kind of the main complex or main component that we use. And then on top of it, what we have in every application is this header and footer here. So navbar, some kind of. So that one we had in the layouts. So we have this nav component, navigation bar. So this also has all kinds of like classes here, how it actually works in different screen widths. So you can read the Bootstrap documentation, what those small and medium and extra large and all those stuff, what those mean, where are the breakpoints. And then we have a bunch of helper classes like background white and border in the bottom and all kinds of like easy to understand, almost humanly readable what this thing is doing. So it's quite an easy thing to configure and understand what those are doing. And since we can always go back and read on the documentation what those things are doing. Okay, here we have those widths. So we have the small, medium, large, and extra large. So with all those different breakpoints, what will happen when? So 12 is the kind of the classical thing. And then you can play around here with background colors. You can define yourself those boxes and see how the screen is divided. So if we don't specify the size, then it divides it equally. So if it's 2 columns, then half and half. If it's 3 columns, then it's 1/4, 1/3, 1/3, or whatever, 1/4 here. So we can see what you can read through the documentation. So if you want to achieve anything, so basically read the documentation first a little bit, and it's quite an easy thing to understand what to do here. And then for the more complex, so start with this grid and probably the layout overview on the grid. And then components are the kind of the next thing we use a lot. So all kinds of those alert boxes, whatever links, whatever we have here. And for us, probably most important is this forms. So how to do input forms. So all those headlines, fields, checkboxes, how this attribute for the checkbox, the label, how this is, how this should be done. So you can pick up everything from here. And probably if you want to do a nice UI, then this navbar is also kind of like interesting thing. And probably most interesting typically in the navbar is this drop down. So if the menu doesn't fit anymore on the top, so how can we collect our stuff into this kind of drop down? So make some kind of menu system. And then in the future, probably like modals and popovers and whatever else, toasts and tooltips and whatever you want to have. So we can make a pretty nice web here. Card is also kind of like a nice thing if you want to display your stuff in more interesting ways, let's say. So you have this kind of card layout for the items. So this is your home reading, let's say. There are no specific tasks. So this is for yourself. So please learn it a little bit and try to design a decent looking and, let's say, usable web with it. So, but what we need to do first. So let's go back to our web and fix what we need to fix. So, okay, I want to get rid of this yellow box. So the first thing here, home persons was okay. Courses was okay. Course declarations, create new. Okay, already here I can see that the width is probably not the best, but this is design issue. But PersonId. So I don't like this Andres Kerman Jüri Mikk. It should be actually full name, not just first name. So where is actually this thing coming from? So let's go and see what is going on here. So we are in the course declarations, create. So let's see, pages, course declarations, create, and the go behind part. So what is done in the onGet? So I can see two rows here. ViewData course ID equals new select list. So it makes some kind of select list, uses the full context courses, so it takes the whole database or the full table from the database, and then has two fields, course ID and course name. So data value field and data text field. If I go and look what the select list even is, so let's go and inspect it. So select list has some kind of name. So this is where the value goes back when we click submit. So we get this course declaration.PersonId. And then we have a bunch of options, Andres Kerman Jüri Mikk, and the values 1, 2, 3, 4. So it seems that the data value field is this one. So this will be finally here, option value. And the data text field is this one here, Andres Kerman Jüri Mikk. So we need to find a way how to not use directly first name, but to use some kind of combination of the first name and the last name. Different ways how to achieve it. But let's first see how it's created in the C# Razor page. So course person, it's here. So it's select. So it has two tag helpers, asp-for. So what's the field we are editing? So where the data should go when the submit is clicked. And then asp items. And this goes to the ViewBag PersonId. So we will speak about what the hell is ViewBag. So it's actually ViewData on this side here. But basically this is like a black bag of garbage. You can throw anything here. It's just a collection of objects. Can be absolutely anything. Widely recommended not to use. So it should be actually strongly typed. So this is not the correct way how to do it, or let's say not the recommended way how to do it. But more interesting is this. We will assign a select list to it, and yep, taken from the persons and uses those two fields. And then it's automatically ASP items knows that when it is a select list object, it knows how to make a select list out of it. And when we click a post, when we click a submit, then it goes here, just adds, and then redirects it back to the index page. And if it's not valid, what will happen then? Return page. So those will be empty then, although it's not possible to get it as a non-valid model. Shouldn't be possible. Okay, so the first exercise here is this, that how can I get a better name here? So I can go to the persons probably and make a temporary field there, a getter. So public, let's make a property. Can't write. So it's a string. Let's call it the full name. I don't want to have anything, just a getter, so it's not there in the database. So it's a first name plus a space plus a last name. And now I should be able to use the full name here. Plus, this is magic strings. So this is, once again, highly not recommended. So we should not use magic strings if at all possible. So for that, we have this function built into the language, which is called the name of. So we can do name of person dot full name. And what this function does during the compilation time, it's basically searches and replaces and puts this, the part that is after the final dot, if there is a dot, then this one is copied as a string into place of this whole thing here. So it will be back to the full name. And this is magic string, so if I make a mistake here, then nothing works. But if it is this, then it's strongly typed. It's checked during the compilation time. If there is a problem here, then this is an error. I cannot run the code. So this is much more like less mistakes making way. So the same here. Would be nice to do this name of person dot, and it was the person ID. So let's run it. Yep, and now I got the full name here. So it knows how to go and get the property. So this is already much better. So let's start to speak. What have we seen here? So the first thing, passing data, and that we already have seen, ViewData. So ViewData is just a collection of data. So it's like a black garbage bag. You can throw anything there, and it's just a collection of objects. So, and there is two ways how to access it. So either it's a ViewData or then it's a ViewBag. So, and the difference is this. Here it's a ViewData. So ViewData here is in a dictionary. So basically ViewData is declared as something like this. I can make my own. Let's say it's and the other way. Type is first. So it's a dictionary of a string and then object. So it's something like this. So we can assign absolutely anything here. And then the C# has a built-in feature on top of the ViewData, which is called a ViewBag. I'm thinking ViewBag is only in the razor actually. Is it really so? Yep, here it is a ViewBag. Why can't I do a ViewBag here? No bag. Go figure. Yep, only ViewData is here. I think MVC also has the ViewBag on both sides. So here it is a dictionary, the ViewData. And here on this side, when we are in the CS HTML, then we can access it actually both ways, as a ViewBag and as a ViewData. So both are possible. ViewBag is exactly the same thing as a ViewData. So language automatically knows that the ViewBag.PersonId is actually equal to the ViewData PersonId. So those are equal. And if we look, if you go and look in the GitHub what the source code is for the ViewBag, so the ViewBag is actually based on the ViewData. So the underneath is always ViewData what is used. So that was the first thing. And then we have the problems here. So no intelligent support, needs casting. So except maybe strings. So string is always 2 strings. So this is kind of like works out of the box. But everything else, what we throw there, we cannot be sure what is there and why, and will it really work? So we can try to do something like this. Let's say ViewData. Let's say ViewData custom, I don't know, content equals, and now I can do something weird. Let's make it a function. Let's say it takes a string s, and this one will return s dot to upper. The target, okay, lambda expression, the target type object, and then I need to cast it into the object even more. Can I do something like this? No. Okay, I cannot add a function here. Let's see, what can I add here? I don't know. Let's make it a number, simplest. And now I want to access it on the view side. So when I go here, let's just add it somewhere here in the bottom. I want to do something like this. So we have both ViewData and ViewBag here. Both are accessible. So it was this custom content. And let's say I want to add a 10 to it. Can I do something like this? Absolutely no idea, because there is like no intelligence here what the hell this custom content is. Maybe it will work, maybe it will not work. No idea. Let's run it. It might work. Number plus number maybe is doable. What? App creates a session. Why can't I do this? What did I get now? Oh, okay. It's not here in the constructor yet. I have to do it on the onGet. Okay, this was calculated. What will happen if I do new So now it's some kind of anonymous object. So everything just compiles nicely, no problems with that. And now it crashes. Operator plus cannot be applied to the operands of type object and int. So we can push almost anything into the ViewBag, ViewData, and then we hit the problems during the runtime. So this is meant to be used only when you actually really need it. And there is no other way how to communicate our data back to the CS/HTML. So that's the kind of the last ditch effort. So don't use it if possible. And how to get around it. So even here, this is bad. So this ViewData is not nice because I can write absolutely anything here and no mistakes, no problems. It will only crash during the runtime. So this is not a nice feature, or it's a nice feature, but it's not really safe. So the way around it is make everything strongly typed. So I will actually create those properties here. So it's a select list, and it's what? Course. And the other one is a person select list. And now I can just assign stuff here nicely. Now those are strongly typed. So we have the nullables turned on. So I have to either declare them as this, so that they might be a null, or then I will have to tell to the system that forget it the other way. Only problem will come here in the post, because the post just returns the page when the model state is not valid. So this will probably then crash, because then those will be nulls. But it cannot never hit it, because there is only two properties. It cannot be invalid. Although maybe we can force it. Let's see. And now when it's strongly typed, now I don't need this ViewBag PersonId. So I can actually go now to the model and take my course select list. I know this is the person list, is the first one. And this one is a model and course select list. So this is how the select list works. So this is where the value shall go into the course declaration object, property course ID, and the items and the possible values please take from this list. So this course select list. And now it's strongly typed. If I do something like this, now it's a problem, cannot run it, compilation problem. So this is the correct way how to pass data into the Razor. So it should always be strongly typed if at all possible. The only thing that cannot be strongly typed is this one here. So this is how we pass data from the view to the layout. So this ViewData title is written out here into the header. So we cannot specify a type here somewhere or model for the layout itself. So there the ViewData is correct way how to pass data into the layout. But otherwise, do not use ViewData if possible. So, and now we have seen the Razor syntax quite a lot, actually already. So what is going on here in the Razor syntax? What do we do here? So it starts with this @ sign. So this is how we go from the HTML into the C#. It's not actually C#, it's Razor, its own language. but it's really, really similar to the C#, or let's say it is a C# with some extensions. So there are some new keywords here that do not exist on the C# side. So for example, the most important one for us is this @page. So this specifies that this CS HTML file is a razor page. And the next one is probably @model. That's also really, really important, that where the data is actually coming from. So what will be the value or the type and value for the model property. So where is our person? No, course declarations we were doing. So what this model will be. So if we need to reference back to the code part, so then it's typically @model or model. Something. Some fields do not need it because asp-for, for example, this already has written into the code itself that it is based on the model, so there is no issue there. But if you want to reference it directly in an instance of a model, then it's this model dot, and the type is taken from this declaration from here. So @model. And when we speak about razor, then the @sign starts the razor syntax, and we don't have an ending syntax. So there is no end tag, just a beginning tag, the @. And we typically do not need an end tag. So it automatically knows that this is the HTML part. Now the C# starts, or the razor. And when the less than sign comes, then it falls back into the HTML. So it knows that now here in this place, the C# part is an over. And automatically, if it's an @, so it's an expression. So expression is first evaluated. So whatever calculation stuff is here, everything is calculated. And finally, toString is applied to it, and it's written out into the HTML. So whatever this datetime toString, datetime now toString will be, so the actual text value is inserted here. And we can call any method or function or whatever we want, and whatever is the output from here, toString is always at the end, and the value is written out here. One thing that we cannot do here are spaces. So if you want to do calculations here, then you have to use parentheses. So this now is with an kind of like the end tag, because the parentheses are counted and they have to match. And so if it starts with this opening parenthesis, then there has to be a closing parenthesis. And now the compilator knows that, hey, here the C# or the razor part is over and fall back into the HTML. So this is how we write razor expressions. And of course, I think we haven't touched it, but everything here is HTML encoded. So, and we can test it out. Okay, I have to run it again. So if we go into the persons, I want to write something like this. I want to make my name bold. I can't. So this is now HTML encoded. So if I go and inspect it, what is actually there? Okay, that one doesn't show it correctly. Let's see if I view the page source. What can I see then? Yep, now I can see it. So this is what was done with my less than sign and bigger than the sign. So those are actually replaced with the HTML codes. So no way you are not allowed to write HTML into the strings. But sometimes we need to. And if you really, really need to, and it's okay to do, since it's always a security risk. Somebody will write God knows what. Then you can use special helper. We have this @HTML raw. So @HTML. So HTML is built-in object in Razor pages, which has many helper functions, which we tend to not use anymore that much, but there are still few that we use a lot. So HTML raw is one of those things we get from the HTML helper. And I can try to replace here in the persons. Where was it? Persons index. And those are the other two major helpers we use, or main ones, display name for and the display for. But I can now add also here HTML raw, and I want to display item.last name. And now it is a bold. So now it's a raw HTML string. It's not converted anymore into HTML tags or encoded into HTML. So now the bold is actually written out. This is, of course, a security risk because now you can do something like this. And we got our JavaScript up and running. So this is not a nice thing to do just like that, the HTML raw. So you really have to think, is it okay to write it out or is it not? And if you want to or need to use it, how to make it actually safe if it's some kind of commercial application. Because now when I can just write any kind of JavaScript into the database and it's actually run, now I can steal cookies and do whatever else, send them somewhere to external services. So avoid as much as possible using the HTML raw. But sometimes useful. And then we have the Razor code blocks. So the Razor code blocks are basically the same as Razor statements, close to it. You can code blocks always start with the curly braces. And the only difference is that you can now write many statements here and there will be no output. So you can write whatever here, do any kind of codes, define functions. You can do basically whatever C# you want to do. And it is just run and nothing is echoed out. So nothing is coming out from there just like that. So you have to work a little bit or tell to the code block or inside code block that now I want to get an output. So the normal stuff is not outputted. And if you want to fall back into the HTML and you actually want to output something, then I tend to use those text tags because this makes it more readable. The text tag, the HTML text tag is not part of the HTML standard. It's not in the HTML5 or anywhere. So it's purely a Razor thing. So when the page gets compiled and when the page is actually rendered out, then the text tags are removed and you just get some kind of HTML there. And so this is only if you want to write out just like pure text. If you can wrap your text into some kind of HTML tag, for example, this paragraph tag, then you don't use those, you don't need those text tags. And if you really want to, you can also make this @:. So this makes a single line transition. So now this line here is basically HTML and write everything out that there is. So now where it is, so this one converts it into the HTML. So now starts the HTML. So this will be just a string, name : will be written out. And now this is a C# expression. So the person name, so this is actually a person object and takes the name property from it. So once again, typically useful in some kind of code blocks, for example, like this for or if or whatever we are doing. somewhere there, we might use this kind of syntax. I tend to use, if possible, those text tags. So for example, here, item person, we can make something weird here, for example. Let's say this is the HTML comment. And we can write out here now, let's say, item dot, just for the fun of it, PersonId. So this is legal HTML tag. So it's not comment, actually. It's totally HTML. So it will be only comment for the browser itself. So I can run this one. Nothing is visible here, but if I go and look at the page source, yep, it's already refreshed. So 1, 2. So the IDs are now visible inside the HTML source code. Or you can make this kind of, let's say, text. Something like this. So we can write out stuff here. And then we have all those control structures. We have already seen those. So all those if, else, if, switches, for each, while, do while. So all those kind of C# control structures are also there in the Razor. So this was already visible here. So this for each, for example. So this loops over the items, and for every person that is there inside the list, inside the model, we will get additional table row out of it. And okay, using is probably not used anymore, so we don't use it compound. So HTML actually has a helper how to generate the form. Nowadays we do it manually, and we don't use the HTML begin form anymore. And then we have the comments. We already did see the HTML comment. That one we did. When we are inside the code block, you can use all the classical C# comments. So there's no issue there. There's pure C#. And when you're inside the Razor and you want to really comment something out, then the Razor comments start with an ** and end with an *@. So this will totally remove the block. And I can select it, code comment with block comment. So now this is totally removed from the Razor. And when we look at the page source, if we would render it out, there's nothing there. So it's not compiled into the HTML anymore. So sometimes useful if you want to comment out something. Then we have all those magic words. Somewhat page using model inherits inject functions section. So there's plenty of those. We already spoke about the page. So this makes tells to the compiler that this is the Razor page. Let's see, do we have? Yep. And then we have some useful stuff. So using. So this just adds the using clause to the whatever gets compiled finally. So we can use whatever library inside our Razor code. So we can add the using something here on the top if you need to. Then we have this model. So that one we already are using. So all the Razor pages have the code behind block, and the code behind block will be the model for the Razor page. Finally, when the stuff is compiled, what we get. So the Razor view is not it's not executed during the runtime, or it is executed during the runtime, but it's not interpreted during the runtime. The CS-HTML is actually converted into the C# code. And this is the header if you use the model type. Then this is the header for the class it generates. So it's a Razor page. And then this is generic parameter. So that whatever is the model type in the Razor code will be a generic for this Razor page class. Then we have the inject. We don't use it here in this semester. We will use it a lot in the next semester. So this allows us to access whatever we need to access from the dependency injection engine. So for example, you can inject a database if you really want to into the Razor page. Please do not do those things if at all possible, but if you really need to, technically it will work. So you can inject whatever into your page, what the dependency injection engine has. So this is this startup and configure services. So in theory, we can inject this application DB context into our views, plus whatever the Razor pages is adding. But please don't. And then if we start to do more complex pages or more complex applications, then of course we also tend to use this section thing. And the section thing, what does it actually do is it allows us to modify the template somewhat. So if you look into the template, where is it? Shared layout. Then here at the end, we have this await render section async name scripts. So we do not want to touch our layout all the time. And layout is really somewhat actually dependent what kind of page we are rendering. So sometimes we want to add something to the CSS, we want to add something to the JavaScript, but we do not want to touch or generate different layouts for different pages. And the sections will help us out. What we can do with the sections is this when we are here. So actually in the create and edit pages, they are using sections. So it tells, please now let's define the section called scripts. And this is the actual content for the section scripts. And it goes and actually renders out some kind of partial HTML, so partial C# code. So let's look what it is. It will add those two script tags. So we can send the code and JavaScript expressions or whatever JavaScript code blocks from here, from this specific view, create CSS-HTML. We can send whatever is here in the section scripts. We can send it into the layout, and it will be rendered out here where this function is called. So it will be at the end of the page. And they don't have a section here at the top. I generally add one section also here to add the CSS into the top of the page. So if I want to overwrite something in some kind of page customly. So it's really, really useful. And then we can create additional code functions. So you can add a new, it's not a section, it's a function block. So add functions block, and then you can just define a function here. And then you can call it anywhere on the page. So if you need to make a special UI function and you don't want to create it inside the C# part, so we could also actually create a function here in the code behind, add here some kind of function, and then call it via the model. So model dot whatever is the function name. But if it's purely UI, then you can actually declare it here locally in the Razor code block and call it out that way. And we have a problem here. Let's fix the problem. I know where it's coming from. C# lectures. Oh, it's actually here. Let's see. It's images and it should be C#.
Isi.
Ja, kallis.
Et kas ma võin võtta ühe magustoidu.
Ja palun.
Aga kas ma multika tohin?
There's only one, okay.
Aga kas ma multika
Ei,
tohin?
üks moment palun, ma pean vahepeal oma last kasvatama, miks ma üldse kodus olen, siin on mul üks tõdine, ajab tätti nihast välja.
Miks ma ei saa multikat? Pool tundi. Siis lähen võtan magustoidu.
Palun, mine võtta magustoit. Kids. Siis see on. Yep, now we have this nice picture here. So most web apps, we have this kind of layout. So we have the header, the footer, and content, and sometimes also this kind of like left navigation part. So how this is achieved here in the Razor pages. So we have this kind of beginning in every web page we do, or in every Razor page. So we can assign something to the layout. And if we don't add anything there, so for example, there's nothing here, but every view that is rendered out starts with this view start. And this specifies already that the default value for the layout is this underscore layout. And it tries to go and find it from this shared underscore layout location, if there is no more specific place to be had. So first it tries to find it from the current directory. So if we are rendering out persons or course declarations or whatever, we can add the layout here. So let's actually test it out. I can add a new layout here. Let's say whatever, Razor MSC view. Let's call it the layout. Let's call it H1 layout. And the only thing it needs to be that every layout must call the render body. So let's call the render body here. So this is where the actual page is rendered out. And let's put another H1 here. So now we should have a custom layout in the persons, because this is now overrides the shared one, because it's a closer or in the same directory as the persons pages. So let's see, will this work? Yep, layout. And this is what our page would look like without any kind of Bootstrap CSS. So now it is just a table, a regular one. Quite visual difference. It's quite big actually. So let's remove that one. But this is how you can make a custom layout. So if those person pages need to look like totally differently, you can just make a copy of the layout or whatever, or create a totally new one and use whatever layout. So typically we tend to use it when we divide our web into two parts, like front end for the client and then some kind of admin backend, then the admin backend might use a totally different layout than the front end. And mandatory here is that you need to call this render body function, and you can only call it just once. So you cannot render out your page 2 times. So we already spoke about this render section. So what the render section does, and then we define the section in our Razor page somewhere. We can make the section mandatory, so regarded can be true. But if it's true and you do not add the section definition, then your page will just crash. So there will be an exception. And then we have those shared directives. So the view imports, this is what every page begins with. So this will be imported first, or this will be added first, then the view start, and then your own page and the layout if needed. But the view imports and view start is always there. And you can add, so the view imports, so those directives are shared. So whatever every page needs, you can add those here. So tag helpers and using and model and whatever else. So we can make some tricks here. But typically, don't touch the view imports. Let it be as it is. And then we have this view start. So this defines the initial code on every page. So has the same structure or hierarchy, hierarchical like the view imports. So we can define additional ones in subdirectories if you want to. And you can do whatever here, not just overwrite the layout, but do whatever you want to do here in this code block. So write some C# code or define some functions or do whatever you want to do. And then, of course, we have partial views. We do not want to repeat ourselves. So some of the stuff tends to be really, really repetitive here on the Razor pages. So we can get rid of those repetitions with partial views. So let's make an example out of it. So if you look, let's take the persons here. So if I look at the create, I have this block here. First name and last name. If I look at an edit, I have exactly the same thing. Person, first name, last name. And if I look at details, I have this block here. Display name 4 and display 4 for the both first name and last name. And if I look at the delete, exactly the same thing. So there is already a repetitive code here. So I can create the shared views here. Let's say Razor MS view, and typically those start with an underscore, so it's shared. Let's call it create edit. And then we have what details delete maybe. Let's say details. So initially everything is just an empty. And partial views has the same syntax as the any other view. So it can start with the model. So we can specify what the model here is. So with the small m. No, sorry. Yeah, with the small m. So the same way as it is here. So let's see, what do we need to do? So the create, we want to get rid of this block here. And we want to do the same thing in the edit. So something should be here, and in the create it should be here. So what's the model here? So we can use the same model that we have here. So this is now happy. And now we just need to call it correctly. So let's go into the create. So how to call it? So it's HTML partial, or even modern syntax is this one here. So let's use a tag helper. So we have the name. Name is ICreateEdit. And we need to pass the model instance. So this will be just a capital model. And the same with details. Let's see what is common between the details and delete. Yeah, seems to be that that part here is the same. And I can do the same in the details. So now this thing is a partial. Name, details, model, model. And the same here. And this should just work. If I go to the edit, where did I go? Edit person, what? What did I do now? Yes, create edit. Oh, okay. I didn't add that one here. Create. So let's run it again. Yep, still works. But now I have only one place where to update it. So if I want to make my now if I need to do anything here, I can just fix this one place. I don't have two places where to fix my edits or my details. So this is the form group. Okay, this is nice. Let's say edit. I want to make it wider. Okay, this I have to do in two places. Two separate definitions. So I want to make it, I don't know, into the 8, for example. And the same here. Call medium 8, and on small one it's a 6. No, can be 8. Wider, nice. But if I want to update anything here, I just need to edit one place and make it whatever I want to. Can I have some kind of like strong here? No, let's add it background info, for example. And now it appears in both places in the edit. And when I go to the create, no. What I'm doing now create model, edit model. What? What is this? This is something new for me. So edit went okay. Oh, okay, this is a different model. All right, I need to actually send down the something different from here. Because they don't use the same page behind. So the code behind block is actually different. That's true. Let's see what is common here. So I can definitely, because this is this bind property person, I need to actually edit. How can I do it? Let's see. I should be able to just send the person down then. So if I say that the model will be model.person, and the same in the create, and now here I want to say it's not this one anymore. It's actually just a person. So it's domain person. But what will happen now? So I need to remove this prefix now. Let's see. Can I do this? So this will definitely work, but what will happen on the submit side? So let's see, edit. Yes, can I still edit? No, I can't. Ha! It's doable really easily on the MVC side, but not so easily here on the Razor sides. Okay, so I know definitely how to fix it. Okay. I will do some, let's base it on the interface. Let's say it's an ICreateEdit. Can I do this thing? And what it has is a property person. Oh, sorry, it has to be interface. So now I should be able to add this interface to my pages. And the same on the edit. So there has to be this person thing. Okay, can I now do here that the model will be ICreateEdit? No, there has to be a person now, yes. This thing can now go back. And now the data shape should match, I think. So the model is now just a model. And the same thing here. Let's see. Now it works. With some trickery, I can still force it. So this is what, although we will touch it a lot on the next semester, interfaces in the object-oriented programming. So those are used quite a lot. So this was one example of how those are used. So basically, this is a contract, or can be thought of as a contract. I'm telling that, hey, there has to be, or this contract specifies that whoever is using this contract has to fulfill this term, that there has to be this kind of field, public person. It has to be there. So whoever is using this ICreateEdit interface has to define this field. Now both of those create model fulfills this interface because there is this public person. For example, if I comment this out, now I have a problem here. Interface blah blah is not implemented. So this is checked. And now I can also use it here as a view model. Basically tells that, hey, do not expect a concrete object. Expect an object that will fulfill this contract. So whatever is coming has to be in the shape of this contract. And since this is the only thing we know about this contract or about this view model now, that it has to have this shape, fulfill this contract, we can just write person.something, or if we want to write out something, we can do here model.person.firstname, for example. Since whichever one is coming in here, doesn't matter, is it the create view model or is it the edit view model? Both of those models fulfill this contract. So both of those cases will work here. So the types match. So this is what we do with contracts. Did everybody got what I did spoke just now about the interfaces and how did I use it here? Kerman, did you get it? Kerman is not with us anymore. Sitting in the toilet somewhere. See kohaloleku kontroll vahepeal, vaata, Kerman.
Ikka sain aru.
Said aru, jah? No, sinuga on hästi, ühesõnaga. Küsima inimeste käest, kuidas on? Reelika, did you get it, what I did with the interfaces? Reelika Saks, ma näen seal sind. Reelikat ei ole. Kes meil veel siin on? Mikku pole mõtet küsida, see teab niigi kõike. Kuldar Vakker. Kuldar, did you get everything about the interfaces? Or not everything, but what I did show here? Nah, Kuldar is gone. So let's hope that everybody got it. Edwines. All right, so let's try to go it over slowly a bit because it is actually important, at least for the future. So let's start with the interface itself. So this thing here, this is basically a contract. It tells that this is a contract without the parties yet. So this is just an empty, not an empty, but this is a contract with somebody, but there is nobody has signed this contract. So there is no parties to it, just a contract text. So whoever will use this contract called interface in C# and in most other languages also, whoever will use this interface has to fulfill this term. So you have to declare this public person. So this one has to be there. So wherever you use it, this interface, you have to do this person. So I can do it even here. Let's say public class foo. And if I add this ICreateEdit interface here, So now the foo declares, now this foo is a party, a member of this interface. It wants to fulfill it or has to fulfill it. And now there's a problem, compilation problem here, that it doesn't do it. So I can go here and tell it to implement missing members. And it will add this, rider will add this declaration to fix it, the code, so it matches the interface. So now, nope. Now this class, the foo, is correct one, so it fulfills this ICreateEdit. Plus we have this nullables problem here, so I can add something like default here, for example, to get rid of all the errors. What I cannot do, for example, I cannot do this, or can I? Oh, actually I can. This is improved somewhat, although it's kind of like modifies the interface a little bit. This is not nullable here. How can I make it nullable here? Or it seems that I can. But if I use a different name, now it's back to the problem. The interface is not fulfilled, although declaration is totally fine. But this is a totally different field name, so it doesn't match the interface. So this is kind of the first side of it. So we have this kind of contract that specifies that there has to be, whoever is using this ICreateEdit, it has to fulfill this kind of term. So it has to declare the person and the person. So first, let's look again, how do we use it first? So here, this create model now fulfills this interface, ICreateEdit. And it actually does, because there is this public person here declared. And the same thing here in the edit side. So interface ICreateEdit, and there is this public person thing here. So in that sense, the edit model and the create model are identical because they both fulfill this ICreateEdit interface. So they both have the same kind of person declared with the same name. So everything is identical in that sense. And now when we look at the partial, what we did, so the createEdit. Now the partial tells that when this partial is running or is compiled, then whatever the model is that will be sent here, this model has to be of type ICreateEdit. So whatever else is there, we don't care. We just want to have this rule that when the model is coming in, it has to match this ICreateEdit interface. That one has to be fulfilled by the model. Can be absolutely any object. We don't care. We only care that, hey, do you fulfill this contract? And if it fills this contract, then the code will run. And since the contract specifies that there is a person, then we can happily write our code here. Person.first name, blah, blah. So everything in that sense is correct. So can be any object as long as it has this ICreateEdit interface. And when we look at the how do we call this partial, name createEdit, and we send down the model. Model equals to model with a capital M. So what is the model instance? Model instance is this object, create model. So this object based from this class, create model. Does the create model have the correct interface to send it down into the createEdit? So createEdit specifies that it has to match this ICreateEdit. Does it? Let's go here, create model. Yes, it does. For example, if I take this one away from here, everything still seems to be okay. Let's run it. Let's see what will happen now. So the edit still has the interface. The create doesn't have now. So let's click edit. So edit is okay. Let's create a new, and we fail. And we fail because the model is of type create model, but ViewData dictionary instance requires a model item of type ICreateEdit. And those two now don't match because the create model doesn't have this contract on it. So if I add this one back here, now everything will run again. But finally, so this is just a little bit trickery here on the part of Razor pages. It's a little bit simpler to do partials on the MVC side on the next semester, but then we need interfaces for the lots of other stuff there. We don't actually use interfaces that much here in this semester. But if I want to share the partial between the create and edit or between the details and delete, I have to force the data into the same shape. So currently I also have the problem, if I go back here, details doesn't work, delete does work. And the details doesn't work because the models, details model and delete model don't match with each other. So those are different classes. I have to force them somehow to be identical. So the only way how to do it, ICreateEdit, I also need to, I think it's the same. Let's see, what is there on the delete? Yep, it's the same person, so I can actually rename the interface. Let's call it...
Andres, did you notice what I wrote in the chat?
Yes, I'm... yep, the classical, my socket example.
Yes, that's a good one.
That's a quite okay example, yes. Just a moment, I will fix that one. So let's call, no. Let's make a refactor. Let's call it an IPerson. And now I can use this IPerson everywhere because the delete is actually has the same shape. So I can now grab this. This is also the same IPerson because it only uses the same person field from the model. And now I can do where there are those delete, yep, model, and the same in the details, model. And the only thing I have to do now is to add this IPerson everywhere. So now should everything work? All the pages. See, delete, yes. Details, yes. Edit, yes. Create, yes. Because all those partials, both of those, use exactly the same data field, the person. So no matter what the incoming object is, we can always cast it basically into this IPerson or look at it as an IPerson. So the example, okay, let's say ask Edwin, did it make it any clearer just now? Yes, no, at least. Good. And the example that Mick speaks about, we'll speak about it again on the next semester, definitely, because I don't remember it anymore then. But the example, what I do next semester is this kind of how it works in the real life, is that when you look at the wall, look at any wall at your home where you have some kind of socket on the wall, let's say a switch, or let's say socket. So who specifies what the size of the socket is? How can you go to the construction store and just buy a random socket and be totally sure that it fits into the socket hole at your home? So there is the same principle there, that we have the interface. We have fixed standard what the sockets should be. So they all use this 68 millimeter hole, and then we have a plastic box inside there, and whatever socket you're purchasing, it will most definitely always fit into it. And you don't have to think about it. Does it fit, doesn't fit, what the size is? You know that there's one standard, everybody's using it, and it just works. So it's basically the same concept what we have here. It's called the principle of inversion or inversion control, whatever you want to call it. So the dependency is defined externally. The same way we have it with the chargers. We don't think anymore that what kind of chargers we use. We know that, or at least hopefully, that everything should be USB-C. So you don't have to think anything. It's USB-C, everything is clear. And whoever is making phones, let's kick Apple out from here. But if you take any Android phone, you don't get any more even charger in the box because it's USB-C and you don't have to think anything. Just grab any random cable and it should work almost. Let's say it's not always so happy, but almost so. So that's the kind of the main idea here, that somebody has drawn up an interface that, hey, it has to be USB-C, and whoever is producing a phone, whoever is producing this kind of like partial, let's say, the same thing, doesn't need to think how the USB-C is exactly implemented, what it is, what is there described, what the physical measurements are. There is standard for it. You just use the interface. It's this. You have to fulfill it. And there it is. And whoever is making the phone, so let's say this is the phone, and the phone specifies that I need to be charged with this interface, this USB-C. And phone maker doesn't need to figure out who is making the charger, what is there, what are the voltages, etc., etc. No question. It's standardized. There is interface. There's contract. What those chargers should look like. How much power is there? What voltages? What temperatures? What the physical dimensions are? Everything is specified. The same thing here. We specified everything with this interface, IPerson, and now we can use it everywhere. So one way is we implement it. So those classes implement it. So this one here specifies that, hey, I will implement this interface, or it's mandatory. I need to implement it. And the other side is this one, the phone side, that tells that, hey, when the power is sent here, it has to be in the form of USB-C connection cable and standard. So here it's when the data is sent here, it has to be in the shape of this specific interface, IPerson. And it doesn't care about anything else. So whatever is the actual charger, if you're using USB-C, for example, to charge your phone, there's no difference. Are you using a MacBook Pro charger, or are you using a original phone charger in the box, or some other laptop charger? Doesn't matter. USB-C is always USB-C. The same here. Doesn't matter what the actual object is. Is it the create model, or this delete model, or details model? As long as it fulfills this interface, then everything is happy. We can grab this one mandatory field, this person, out from this object, and all the rest of the stuff doesn't matter to us. And we even cannot access it, so the C# controls it. So if I write here, model dot, I only get this person, because this page here only knows what the standard specifies, IPerson. And IPerson only has the person field or property, and this is it. There's nothing else. Plus, of course, since everything is object derived in the C# object-oriented, everything is derived from the system.object. So there's always those equals, get type, and toString, and get hash code. But there's only one single property, the person. But it will make sense more when you actually start to use it. So we did the partials. Yep, this is how the partial is located. So the same with the layouts and stuff like that. How do we have those prefixes? So if you don't add anything in the front, then it's located. Then it's tries to search it from the current folder, and then from the shared. If you use the extension, then it's only in the same folder. And then you can try to use this kind of syntax to show that, hey, where's the application root or the relative path. So this is kind of like obvious how this works. Then we have the accessing data in the partial views. That one we already did. So typically like this with the model contact type. for example. So we just passed the model, and we use this more modern syntax. Where are you? This partial name and model. So it's actually exactly the same code as this one here. And then maybe what is kind of like where it all leads to is the tag helpers that we use the most. So how do we actually make our code work? And initially everything in the Razor syntax was based, let's go here. No, not here, in the index. Was based on those @HTML helpers. So HTML and we actually can generate all the input fields and all the rest of our content. We can almost, whatever is dependent of data or needs to use some kind of first name, last name, some properties, everything can be generated with this HTML helpers. So all the input fields and forms and stuff like that. And everything works just fine. But then we hit a few years ago, we hit the problem when the .NET Core came out. Not a problem, but then the problem was obvious already that this HTML helper syntax is not really readable. So designers, our HTML gurus, those people were really unhappy because what the hell is this thing? Like, what is this thing doing? Like, this is pure magic. I cannot modify anything here. I cannot add any CSS here. What the hell is this thing? And even more, all those links, forms, input elements, everything was done like this. And it was really, really hard to understand what is going on there behind the scenes, how to modify any kind of data here. So this was replaced, or not just replaced, but added with a new functionality called the tag helpers. And the tag helpers concept are easy. We can write our own, and probably if we have time, we can try in the next semester to write some. We can add our own. And all the tag helpers start with the asp-. So all those things here, those are the tag helpers. So we can add additional functionality into some of the HTML tags. And there is a help in that sense, at least in the writer. If you write asp dot, you can see what tag helpers you can use in any specific tag. So the help here is context sensitive. So if you write some other tag here, let's say div asp-, then div only has one tag helper, asp-validation summary, and nothing else. So it's a context sensitive thing. So we have all those different tag helpers. And what are the most common ones, what we mostly use? Let me skip forward here. First, the most common one is input. So this is the most common tag helper of them all. So asp-for, and probably the most important one. asp-for and then the model expression. So what is this tag speaking about? So what kind of model property are we dealing with? And if you look at any of the input forms, so we have it here. So asp-for. So this is probably the most important tag. And the label also supports it, and some other fields also, that what kind of field or property are we speaking about? So the label is about person last name, and the input is about the person last name. So this is probably the most common and most used tag helper. But let's go back to the beginning and let's see them one by one. So first, the form. So currently our forms, let's see, what do they have? Our forms do not have anything, so they're totally empty of tag helpers. This means that they will use the default values for everything. So when you click post or when you click submit, so it's create on the visualization. So when you click this create button, the submit is done onto the current page. So if we look at the web page itself, so when you do create and you now click the create button here, the post is made into this URL. So we don't overwrite the URL in any shape, but we can if we want to. So we can make, for example, ASP. Let's say we are in the Razor pages, so we use the ASP page. And now we need the page name. Let's say I can go to the, probably the delete, do something like this. And now this will go into the delete page. So from the create, we will make a post to the delete. So don't do that one. Will not work, I hope. No, maybe it will work because the person is still the same person there. Okay, from the create to the delete doesn't work, but from the edit to the delete probably will work. So you can, instead of edit, you will suddenly delete it. But in the theory, we can overwrite. What is happening here. So we can replace all those ASP tags. So we can specify controller action. So this is for the next semester. We can add additional route data, route parameters, all kind of stuff. And what is more interesting for us, like the next most useful parameter, probably what we will use is this one, asp-route parameter name. So if you use this one, then whatever is here, asp-route, and then some kind of name, this will be added to the Forbes target and to the URL target if we same tag is on the URL also on the links. So this will add a target depending how it is possible to add. Typically it is as a query string. So we can try, for example, this here. Let's see, ASP route is there. And now I can do this. Foo. Can I add? Bar. Something like this. Let's see, where else can I add it? Can I add it to this input? ASP route foo bar. So what this will do, if you need to do it, if you need to use it, this will add to the URL, we'll add this foo equals bar. So this will modify the URL when needed. Once again, typically you don't need it, but sometimes when you want to create some advanced actions, then it's really useful. And then you can also switch off the anti-forgery token. Once again, don't touch it, let it be as it is there. So it's not really useful. We can do arrays, fragments. Yeah, once again, not really useful initially, only useful when you try to do something, some kind of advanced functionality. So let me remove those initially from here. Then on the div, we only have this ASP validation summary. And this only has 3 values, all, model only, or none. And when we look at the CreateEdit, where are you? CreateEdit. So we have it here. And model only displays only the model errors. So it only displays whatever is here. So if this person is part of the model, it tries to validate the person if there is some validation rules. So for example, null is not allowed. Let's see, can we demonstrate it? Yep. So those are basically the validation problems. Okay, now it's using the JavaScript-based one. Let's turn the JavaScript off. Let's go here on the create and let's remove this section. And let's rerun it again. So now I'm not using the JavaScript-based validation anymore. So whatever I'm writing into the form is sent to the server. And we got the same output here still. But now when I click create, I can see that the wheel here is rotating. So that actually it's sent to the server and the data is coming back from there. And if I change it to the all, now I should see a little bit different errors. Now I should see everything what is wrong at the same time. Yep, now those fields are also written out here. So either it lists only the extra errors here, or then it lists all the errors. The field-specific errors are listed here underneath every property. So if you hit some kind of weird roadblock that your forms don't work, then it's recommended to turn this one into the all, because you probably have some validation errors that are not visualized onto the screen. And I initially even do something like this typically, that when I create my web pages, I go into edit, find, replace in files. And initially it was model only. So I will replace all those model onlys with an all. So now they are all everywhere. Yep, also here. So now if I make some kind of weird mistake in code behind, if it causes a validation problem, then it's at least visually I can see what the hell is it. So this is useful. And then we have the input helpers. So all those things are also possible. ASP-for, we already spoke about it. And maybe sometimes it's useful to have this ASP format. So we can specify how the string should be formatted. It's actually a parameter added to the toString. So whatever we write here, this will be added as a parameter to the toString call. So if the toString knows what to do with this this format description, then the text will be formatted correctly using the format descriptor. So sometimes useful. And the input type, what we get inside the HTML, is based on the .NET type. So the strings will be type text, booleans will be checkbox, datetime will be some kind of mystical HTML datetime, which sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. Oh, there's a syntax here problem. Where is my editor? Let's fix it. Datetime. And bytes and integers and single and double and all those things, everything will be number. And we can use data annotations if we want to. We can specify that our string is actually an email. So we can add this kind of attribute or annotation on top of our properties. And the input type, the ASP-for, knows how to pick it up. So when ASP-for sees that, hey, it's actually an email address with attribute, then the type will change to the email. And the same with the passwords and stuff like that. So once again, useful. Span only shows a validation error. So this is only displays a single validation error if we have one. Label has this ASP-for tag. So about which field the label is about. So what's the ID and what's the label that should be rendered out here. Text area is the same as input, has the ASP-for. So hopefully everybody knows what this text area or what those all those HTML elements are. Then we have the select. Select has two main things, asp-for. So where shall the value go when you click submit? And asp items, where should the items come from? So those two things. And sometimes we need to create and drop down out of the enums, like male, female, or colors, or whatever we have in the enums. So HTML helper has this function, HTML dot, and then this get enum select list, and then the type of the enum you want to use. So this will generate a select list for you out of the enums. So sometimes really useful. To do it manually is kind of like troublesome. Option crop we can skip. This is like advanced select. Multi-select also is a little bit advanced. Let's do that one when we need to. And maybe the tricky part, if you need to do input over several items. So if you want to input collections at the same time. So then we do a little bit weird trick. And the trick here is this, that the asp-for, you can use an arrays here. So if you have this model I is done, then the I is replaced with the number, whatever it is. So since this is the C# expression here, or Razor expression here, so this will render out correct ASP based from the asp-for will be render out correct IDs and names. And when you click submit, actually list is constructed back, or array is constructed back when you click submit. So you actually can edit several persons at the same time, or make dynamic forms or stuff like that. It sometimes has some problems when you have like holes in your data, what will happen then? But mostly it works just fine. Then we have the link tag, the A. So we can define all those actions and routes and whatever on it. For us, the most important here is we have it everywhere. This asp-page, since we are living inside the Razor pages world currently. So everything for us is asp-page. Then we have the image. Image only has one tag, asp-append version. So we can do some cache busting. So you can add the serial version into the image label. And then we have those script helpers. Those we can skip for now. Those are kind of like advanced stuff. Basically, what it speaks about is that we can have scripts installed, JavaScript stuff installed locally, and we can also use remote libraries at the same time. So by default, it will try to load this one. So this is the default source tag. We'll try to load it from this location, but if it fails, then it goes to the fallback source. So then it tries to load the script locally. So for example, if you jump into plane and you are without the network, then you can still keep coding and everything shall work if you have the script also locally installed. And this is the test, like ASP fallback test, that how can it understand was this thing loaded successfully or not. So it tries to access the window.jQuery object. If it's not there, then it knows that, hey, I have to go back and load it locally. So once again, works, useful when we really need it. The link, the same thing. How do we load the CSS? The same thing. We can load it from the remote and then test it. Was it okay? And if not, then fall back to some kind of local version. Then environment, let that one be. This is a little bit advanced. And then we also have those HTML helpers that we sometimes still use. And we mostly nowadays use only output helpers, not input form or link helpers. And from the output helpers, we use the strongly types one, so the display for and display name for. So we have those two still actively in use, and then the raw one also. So if I go into the index, so here we have those display name for and display for. So what those two things do, so display name for sees what we want to print out, what kind of model and what kind of property from that model. And it has lots of functionality how to print out the model, the property field name correctly. Maybe there are some translations. Maybe you have some other weird transformations on top of it. So this takes all those account and doesn't blurt out just the first name, the last part from here, but actually formats it correctly and tries to understand, do we have some additional configuration in our model, what to do with this one. And the same here with the display for. This tries to print out the value of the property. And if there are some fancy stuff done, then it takes this fancy stuff into account. If you don't have any kind of like fancy logic here, you can just do item.last name and it will give you exactly the same result. Doesn't matter which one you use. But maybe if you have some kind of fancy formatting applied behind the scenes, then this one will not understand anything about it and will still just print out the value. This one actually knows how to take account all this fancy stuff on the background. That's why we still use those HTML display name for and HTML display for. Main reason is translations and custom names. Because, for example, here what we have now, let's see, let's try to use it. What is the most common use case initially? Where's my web? Let's go here. So if my property name is first name like this and last name, so this is not how we normally write it. When we write it out for the human to read, there should be a space here, the same here. And maybe the name shouldn't be capitalized anymore. And we can actually do it quite easily. So let's go and edit our model. Not model, but let's edit our person. So we already have those attributes here. And now we can add one more here, which is this. I think it was the display. Was it name? First name. Yep, and now I have this first name, last name. And even if I go to the validation, it should, yep, uses the same names here correctly. So this makes it much more readable and nice. And I can also actually, in the next semester, we will also apply translations here. So our page will be in whatever language we choose. So that's why we still use it. So we have like different links, stuff, blah, blah, blah here. So we still use those display name for and display for. And this is what it used to look like in old times before the ASP.NET Core came out. So it was like, what, 5, 6, 7 years ago? Something like that. So we can see that to add this form control tag into the input, into the editor, you have to do this kind of like weird syntax here. New anonymous object with one field, HTML attributes, which is once again an anonymous object with this kind of class property name, and then the value for it. So this was really, really kind of confusing to read and hard to modify. So our HTML gurus were unhappy about it. So we made the tag helpers for them. So now if you do any kind of bigger, let's say what it is, product company, So if you have your own in-house HTML designer, then typically those HTML designers now work directly with the Razor files. They don't just produce HTML anymore. So they are happy with whatever we have in the code. That one is really, really hard to understand what is going on here. So this is it. So now you have everything, how to make web pages. So now we need to figure out what to actually do with those pages. How much time do we have? Like half an hour? Or 45 minutes or something like that. So now you need to do something like this. Let's find your homework. And let's write your homework, and then let's try to help you out with this homework. Oh, 04. Let's see what's the calendar tells me. So next lecture is at 12. Let's put it 2 weeks. Let's see. So the task here is simple. Convert, okay, let's say, in addition to your console UI, implement the same functionality in Razor pages. So simple one-liner. Do everything what you have currently as a console application. Do the same stuff in your Razor pages. Seems easy as a sentence. Probably it's not that easy actually to do. So what do you need, and how can you do it? So let's start to think about it. Where is my stuff? Let me first upload this one. So let me close everything down here. So I'll do the demonstration here on top of this existing application, what I have currently. So I start with an empty web page. So this index is HTML. It has the layout. So let's add here ViewBag. Let's see ViewData. Okay, and the basic data input thing is probably clear. So those are just the waveforms that, hey, you have those games listed in your database. Please load, continue, etc., etc. So this is kind of like understandable. But what is the complex part typically, or has been so far, is how can I actually make a game board? How can I visualize my battleships? What will those be there? How can I draw it out? And what is going on here? So let's try to visualize something. So this is our page model. So everything starts from here. So I can initially collect everything together here. So let me do it locally. So let's call my business logic is here. So this is my GameBrain, and currently my GameBrain has those boards, yeah? We have board A and board B, or player A and player B, whichever way you wanted to finally do it. So, but let's try to first visualize just one board. So it's what we have, some kind of game state. Is this one an enum? No, it's class. Let's say board state. It's not board, let's say board item state. Okay, let's call it board item. So this one was what, let's say, I know, has boot. Okay, let's make it simple, has bomb. I just want to do one thing initially. Can't see my keyboard anymore, it's getting dark. And this one was a two-dimensional array. So I will make a fixed one. Type. No, actually, I need to load it from the database, but as a quick start, it's totally okay to do something. So I have my GameBrain, and my GameBrain only has board, and this is it. And it has, okay, maybe I can make a constructor here and add some random values, at least to the board initially. So so this one is the, let's say, the X. Get length dimension, yes. Over the, hopefully the 0. Y. Board dimension 1. And this one now will be board. Now we need a random engine. Max value, min value, 10 is, let's say, less than 5. Okay, now I have random mines in my board. So onGet doesn't need to do anything. The brain is already initialized. On every request, we get a new one. Hopefully it's okay initially. So now we need to visualize our board. So let's try to visualize it. So let's start with row. So now inside the row, we need to visualize 2 boards, yeah? So basically it's div class equals. So this can be a column, let's say 6, or it can be just any col. And then we have the other one also. And now we need to visualize our board. So we have those 2 boards, A and B. So we currently have just one, but let's try to do one here. We have 15 minutes. So now I can do something like 4 here, the same way. So what shall it be? I think the board is a table, yeah? We can just throw out some HTML table. So let's see, will the Bootstrap table help us out? So this is the TR, and then you have a bunch of DDs for every row. And we need some kind of borders, so we need to look out how to draw those. Or initially we can just start with the no class. Yeah, border is obsolete nowadays. But let's see, what will border 1 do for us? Maybe it's at least initially okay. So we need to repeat this kind of structure. So we first go over the x's. Yes, the x position is first. So this will be the model.brain.board.getLength over the 0th dimension, hopefully. And we will repeat those. So no, first we go over the rows. So it's the y's first. Y. And it's the dimension 1 this way. And now we go over the x's. And here we can write out the actual value. So this will be a true false. So I can make something like this. If it's true, then it's an X. Yeah. If it's not true, then it's just a nothingness. Okay, let's say then it's yeah, something like this. So what's the problem here? Yep, that's hash bomb. So let's see, let's run it. So now it's this game here. Object reference not set an instance. Which one? Ah, okay, yes, mine. I know. Where is my brain? What did I do? Because this makes an empty one. It's all nulls, so there is no hash bomb here yet. So I actually have to do this. Equals new board item. And this board item has this value. Like so. All right, I got my board. Somewhat ugly, but at least it's a board. Actually, it's not that ugly. It's better than I hoped for. So we can try to fix it in some way. Where are you? So I need to fix the width and the height here. So first let's inspect it. Where's the size of it? TD, TR. Okay, now I can see it. It's 27 is the height. Let's make it, I don't know, 30 pixels. So if I don't have CSS, I can override any of the CSS properties with this style tag. And on the TD, I need to have the width. So this was not that complex. And now the next problem is that how can I click? Because I want to move around with clicks. Now it's my turn to place a bomb, let's say. And now I want to click here, and this should actually make the necessary request. So different ways how to do it. One way will be to do it inside the JavaScript, for example, but we are not yet trying to do stuff with the JavaScript. You can if you want to, if you know how to. But first we need to learn how to make it kind of like classical way. So everything is processed on the server. So basically all what we have here, it needs to be a clickable. So the TD, whatever is the content here, every cell needs to be clickable. So how can we achieve this? So different, and maybe we need some JavaScript a little bit to help us. But let's write out emptiness here. So it's either X or this empty string. And now we want to click it. So basically this makes it a link. And now this link needs to go somewhere. So ASP, we can say that the asp-page. Basically, we even don't need the asp-page because we want to go to the same page. So we want to load the index again. And the only thing we need here is the asp-route. So we want to pass along the x parameter and the asp-route and the y parameter. So this will be the x and this will be the y. So let's see, what will this produce to us? Okay, we cannot click here really, but we can click on the axis. And yes, if you look at here at the bottom of my screen, so you can see how the link is generated. Game ? X equals 7, Y equals 4. So if I click it, then of course new board is generated. But I can see that the parameters are sent here. And to actually receive those parameters, I need to add those as a strings, as a query parameters here. So it's the int x and int y. And now I can go and fix my board. So brain, of course, there should be a validation here. You cannot trust those parameters. So it's brain.board has bomb equals, and I will just make it negate itself. Now my problem is that this one will be overwritten. Every time I load a page, a new board will be generated. So I have to make it static. Then it should be initialized only once. Actually, I should read it, load it back from the database based on the game ID, but let that one be initially. I want to see that my way how to communicate with my board is okay. Okay, it's not anymore an instance, it's a public static. Let's make it even more, let's make it read-only. Okay, cannot be read-only. And now this needs to be replaced with the, I don't want it to know. No. This has to be a static, go to hell. So this now needs to be referenced differently. So this will be not a model anymore. Should be this index. Nope. Since a static property. I need to reference it by the class name. And now it doesn't refresh the page anymore randomly. So now I can just click on it and it goes away, but I cannot click again because there's an emptiness here. I cannot click on the emptiness. So I can just remove those elements. So I need to figure out the way how to click here on the square itself. Plus currently I can only click on the X, but I actually want to click here on the white background also. So I need to do a little bit JavaScript trickery here because this href actually doesn't work that well. But I can think I can add a on click here, and I need to do some kind of JavaScript functionality here. I need to navigate to the new URL. So let's figure it out. Window location href. Yeah? So window location href equals, and now I want to go to the same place where I am. So it has to be something like this. Let's see, where do I want to go? I want to go here. So let's see, will this work? Yep. Now the white background is clickable. And I just load it via the JavaScript, or do the navigation via the JavaScript, just basically by replacing this address here, and then the page navigates. So this is what this window location href gives me. And actually also want to change the cursor to the clickable thing. Cursor, what is this, pointer or something? Pointer, I think. Yes. Nice. Now I can already do something. So somewhere here I actually have load the port from DB. Apply your game logic and move here. So mine is a really simple example. So it just uses a static variable. So only when the web page is first time created or when the application is launching, then the word is initialized. So I don't load it from the database. I use a static one. But the idea how to actually do it is this one here. So now I can interact with my game board. I should have one more here visualized. So two boards side by side, and then the players swap around. So basically everything that you have in your console application, all the menus, all the logic, all the configurations, whatever you have done so far, add additional UI so that the both systems those both systems work in parallel. So you can work in the console and you can do the exactly same stuff on the web also. They don't need to look visually identical. This is a different UI, but the logic behind what is happening has to be exactly the same. So you need to use a shared code. So there is only one GameBrain. So you actually probably also have here one more parameter, like something like this, ID equals blah, blah, blah. So the actual game ID to currently load from the database. So first you navigate to the page, show me the start a new game or continue with the existing game. You create the initial state, save it to the database, and then navigate to the game page with already this game ID. So something like this. And then you can start to muck around with the JavaScript and use images and, I don't know, animations and sounds and whatever else you want to do here. So everything is HTML here. Everything is doable. So it can be designed quite nicely. The same functionality in Razor. So it does not have to be visually identical. It does not have a cannot be actually. So this is your homework for the next 2 weeks. So try to be a web programmer. And whatever you have in your console application, do the same thing in the web. So with just the different menus and using Bootstrap and JavaScript somewhat if you want to. And it's totally okay here. Would be fancy to do everything in the JavaScript and not reload the page and just redraw the one square that you clicked on. But it's not necessary in this course. So it's totally okay to reload the whole page and just generate everything from the scratch. In any decent computer, it's not really visible. If I close down my inspector, you cannot really see that the whole page is re-rendered. So it works quite okay. So this is it for today, I think. Any questions? Silence is golden. Silence is golden. So ask away in the chat. Our TAs are here. I will go and grab a drink and then prepare for the next lecture. So if you have any issues, any questions, and I will upload the code to the GitLab, so you can take a look and copy if you want anything from here. So see you next time on the next Friday. Goodbye.